Some claim that the age of a true gentleman is far behind us, but here at 284 Media, we definitely disagree. He may appear in different guises today, but the values and ideals that make him a gent still stand. Gentlemen, aspiring gentlemen, and of course, our partners that hold us down. I'm Ron Grant. Welcome back to Season 7 of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, a show that is poised to help guide modern day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen. And no, it ain't about suits and bow ties, but instead it's real life lessons that truly translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded people. I want to thank you guys so much once again for taking this amazing journey with me. My guest today is a community-minded activist. He is dedicated, a husband, father, and a minister of the gospel, as well as an author. He spends his time on a daily basis, and this is not a 9 to 5, this is over the hours too, helping to restore and rehabilitate members of His Majesty's prison. We're talking to the one and only Walter Barrett. We're talking about his journey as well as the level of impact that he's had on his life that he's now imparting to others. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break. Brilliant Hands and Minds Tutoring Services, one-on-one tutorials in math and English, intense homework assistance, academic enrichment, school projects, effective communication and public speaking development, sign language for adults and children on Saturdays only. Registered with the Virgin Islands High School Certificate Program, Brilliant Hands and Minds can help you too. Offering intense curriculum-based training to help you or your loved ones get their high school diploma. It's time to make your family's education a #1 priority. Hurry, space is limited. Brilliant Hands and Minds Learning Center. We are the trained education professionals. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for sticking with us. As promised, we are talking to the one and only, the man himself, Walter Barrett, Minister Walter Barrett. Cheers.
Cheers.
In doing some research, and I had a conversation with someone, more than one individual who worked closely with you, and a few of the adjectives, that were described were dedicated, community-minded, and someone who really, really seeks to pour into others. I want to begin there because, in my opinion, you have two of the most, what I would consider difficult roles. That is a minister of the gospel, as well as the restorative justice officer at His Majesty's prison. I can see clearly how the two would merge easily, but let's start with the ministry and the calling. At what point did you accept the calling to be a minister?
First of all, allow me to say thank you for giving me the privilege to be here on this very auspicious show.
Thank you.
I love what you do, and I believe that you have a heart for it, and it's something that's going to reach really far. So to be able to sit in this chair, it's a privilege. I
You're
don't
welcome.
take it lightly. Um, I am somebody that says I was never called to ministry. I think that when you talk about being called to ministry, people talk about a time in their life when they heard the voice
Mm-hmm.
tell them, I think I was born into it.
Okay.
Because as far back as I could remember, um, I just used to I just used to stand and preach from the time I could walk, from the time I could talk. I just used to be preaching. I remember we had the Collier's Encyclopedia set,
Mm-hmm.
books 1 to 24, and I would pick up. I could remember it was book 23 was the thickest one, and I would use that because it resembled the Bible that the priest used to read from. And I just opened it, and I don't remember what I used to be saying, but
I'm
I was
sure.
preaching.
Yeah.
And I could remember a couple times the neighbor sarcastically, "Amen, preach, brother." And I was like, what, 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
And I could remember that, I could remember my mom fell out with one of her best friends because they told me, "Hey, you're preaching too much, shut up."
Mhm.
And that turned into argument because she was very supportive of me. So it's something I was born with. It's
Okay.
something I love and I have a passion for. And it transcends just preaching. It's about, like you said before, reaching people where they are and, just sharing what you know with other people who you know would benefit from it and just trying to meet needs every day. So,
Beautiful. What are some examples of perhaps your own challenges and testimony that you've been able to take with you along this journey? Because a lot of the times we look for perfection, especially when it comes to someone in ministry or otherwise, anyone in a position of influence. But what has your personal journey been like over the years?
It's been interesting. I love the question. Um, and I never looked the part.
Okay.
I could remember when I was in college, Caribbean Union College, back in Trinidad, um, studying to get my bachelor's degree in theology. The dean of theology would always look at me and say, he would literally say, "Are you serious about this?" Because of
Mm.
how I dress, I didn't dress the part. I didn't have the shirt and tie.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know, I didn't affiliate with the clergy and men of the cloth. I was with the computer science majors. I was playing on the basketball court. Thing about it is, I was always just myself, you know. And a lot of times in ministry, you could get chastised and challenged for being yourself. But I think that's who God wants us to be,
I agree.
because that's the most genuine ministry that you could have. I think you reach people better when you're who God called you to be, and you don't try to be like everybody else. You know, don't be a photocopy. So I had a challenge with that for a long period of time because I was trying to dress the part, talk the part, look the part, and I wasn't comfortable. I
Okay.
even thought about, you know, is this for me? Is ministry for me? Until God said, "No, I called you, not man. You know, I put this in you. I am the one who has you here for this reason, and I put you together the way I put you together, mistakes and all,
Mm-hmm.
trials and all, because you're going to be a blessing to somebody." So I just started to be myself. And honestly, I've been able to go into circles that other people have not been able to go into, or chose not to, because I guess it would stain their white robe,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. But that's why I'm at the prison too. A lot of people didn't want to be there. I started off as a chaplain
Okay.
at the prison, and I was a chaplain from 2012 to 2015, the first 3 years. And I can remember going into wings, sitting in cells with guys that would not allow other people to come in there, and just talking, and they're going deep, you know, telling me about their experiences, and looking at big men cry,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because they're going all the way back to past hurts, and
Traumas, yeah.
being able to open up just because, hey, you came to me and you didn't put on a facade. You look just like me. You look like somebody I could talk to. You seem genuine. You seem willing to know how am I doing. And I think that's what ministry is meeting people where they are, not where you want them to be, but where they are. And that's what God did, you
Amazing.
know.
I once had a uh, pastor. I was confused as to why there was so much persons with issues in his congregation. And he said to me, well, because it's like a hospital.
Mm,
You come to get help, you come to get well,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
don't come perfect.
Hmm.
You come so that we could help guide you and offer you some words of encouragement and help you use the word to guide you. So I totally understand that.
Definitely. Yeah.
I want to go back for a second because you spoke about, in a nutshell, the authenticity of being yourself and not fitting that cookie cutter mold as to what persons would, I guess, expect a pastor to dress like or behave like. And I think that's very important because one of the things that I've appreciated about you is always has been your authenticity. With that being said, for the persons who don't know Walter Barrett outside of the husband, the family, or might have been able to see you and hear you minister the word, who is Walter Barrett?
Who is Walter Barrett? Walter Barrett is somebody who's still finding out who Walter Barrett is. It's a
Okay,
daily
okay,
journey. It's a
okay.
daily journey, honestly.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a daily journey. I have not arrived.
Hmm.
I was born in Trinidad. I moved from Trinidad 23 years ago, and I came here to the BVI. And since then, this has been home. You know, this has been home. I could remember when Irma came. I told people before this little story where I had to make a decision in terms of the children and
Of course.
education, seeing people sending their children out to make sure that their education was not halted or interrupted in any way. And I, by no fault, blame anyone who did that, because we all had a responsibility to do what we think was best for
At
our
the time,
children.
yes.
Yeah. And But my call was I wanted my children with me, and I wanted them to learn resilience. I wanted them to learn that this is home, so we have to rebuild. We have to, and we did that. So I'm somebody who's dedicated to whatever is in front of me. I love my family, my children, I work hard for what I need. I'm not somebody who looks for shortcuts. I don't believe in that. Things that come easily, they go easily.
Hmm.
I love sports. I love tattoos. I
We
love
have something in
tattoos.
common. Good. Yeah. Yeah.
I love tattoos. Because I'm an artist,
Hmm.
and I just love tattoos. So that's one of my weaknesses.
Okay.
Don't judge me. But and I just love to see people excel. If there's anything I could do to help somebody get over that bridge or that hurdle that has them stuck, I'm there. Um, so I'm just about building. I'm just about encouraging. I'm just about seeing growth. Not just for myself, but for other people. That's
Understood.
important.
Understood.
Yeah.
Now you're a father of three.
Yeah. Three.
What has the journey of fatherhood been like? Has it taught you anything?
Yeah, it taught me that I don't know anything. Yeah, my
uh,
children teach me stuff every day, and this generation is
mhm.
just, I don't know, they are different. It must be the water or something.
Must be,
But
yeah.
social media has really brought a lot to them hard and fast, and you have to be like this sieve, like this strainer, as best as you can. But at the same time, you can't stifle them. You have to temper it because they have to be exposed to some things as well. But my children, thank God, they're wise enough to make certain decisions to know what's good, bad, right, wrong, and it's just a challenge being a father because again, expectations from your children, expectations from the church, expectations from society in terms of what father's supposed to look like and what he's supposed to do. But I don't burden myself with that
Hmm.
anymore. To me, it's all about the children. What Once I know that they are happy, and once I know that they're getting what they need, and once I could hear them say, "Hey, Dad, I appreciate you," then I'm doing something right. So,
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, I want to get to a point where we are, just like you said, not stifling, but making sure that we are curating just like we would prepare a meal
Mm,
and we want it to be tasty, that we spend time curating the best of the next generation.
yeah,
And this is what the
definitely.
art of the distinguished gentleman has always been about. It not
Mm,
that you have to physically have a child to mentor or to impart knowledge or to give back,
mhm.
but it's not going to stop with just you or
Correct.
myself.
Yeah.
Even outside of our time, when our time has expired, the persons coming behind will still be left to carry it on. And I think it's important that we spend time pouring into the next generation. And you've been
Yeah.
doing that for quite some time. We're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we get back, I want to talk about your role as the restorative justice officer within the rehabilitation unit, which I think is perhaps one of the most important roles. All
Mhm.
right, viewers, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
The wait is over. CCT Fire is here. Experience ultra-fast downloads, seamless streaming, and even more reliable connectivity on an all-new fire-blazing super-fast CCT Fiber network. CCT Fire. Bring it home and upgrade today.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for sticking with us. Uh, Walter, before we went to the break, I mentioned that I think, in my opinion, when you look at restoration and rehabilitation in anything, someone could be in remission from cancer, someone could be recovering from an injury. Um, Rehabilitation is necessary.
Yeah.
Persons experience trauma, rehabilitation is necessary. You work at His Majesty's Prison as the restorative justice officer, a role that I think is so important. Explain to us what that role looks like and what it entails.
Um, Well, as a restorative justice officer, what I do is I create basically alternative to sentencing programs for first time offenders and for juveniles. So I actually had the opportunity in 2015 to travel to Anguilla, where I went on a course in restorative justice, and I was really enthused with it. So when I came back, I told the then superintendent, Mr. David Foote, I want more.
Mhm.
And he allowed me to go to the UK to do um, a more in-depth workshop in restorative justice, which I did. Came back, I said, "Listen, I want to start this here in the BVI. This will work here. We could use this here." And he gave me his full support, and I started doing work with the court system, where and the schools and the police and homes, families, churches, where instead of somebody actually getting to the point where they end up in the judicial system, we try to do a restorative justice meeting between victims and offenders and do victim offender remediation prior to where possible. And even if it was in the court pre-sentence, that we look at creating an alternative to sentence that would address that person's index crime. Why
Mm,
did this person rob this person? Why did this person get into this fight? Why did this person get involved in what and we deal with that strategically. So through that program, we've actually kept over 60 people out of the prison. They never had a record. Um, and that was working in tangent, but of course with other stakeholders,
of
other
course.
agencies. It's not one person doing it at all. But it's something that works. And what restorative justice does is it reduces the rate of recidivism. So the reoffending, it goes down
Good.
when you put empathy ahead of just simply consequences for actions. Try to understand what somebody's going through. Get somebody who commits a crime to understand how it's affected not just them because you got arrested, but it affected the person that you stole from. It affected their children. It affected their neighbor, the whole neighborhood. It affected the community.
Of course.
And when you do that, what you find is that a lot of these persons are now willing to give back to the community that they've hurt. When you just incarcerate somebody, they sit there, they're like, I'll do my time. It's nothing for somebody to go up to the prison and say, oh, I'll do my 5 years. The majority of them, they'll do it. They'll just sit there, they'll do it hands down. But when you actually put a cognitive aspect to it where they understand the damage that they've done, they're now more willing to say, let me undo what I did.
Mm,
Let me, or I may not be able to undo it, but let me ensure this community that they're safe. Let me ensure this community that, you know, I'm still somebody that they can trust and they can depend on. It
understood.
it makes a huge difference.
One of the things that I always find interesting when it comes to the rehabilitation process, for example, a convicted offender would serve their time, and perhaps it varies in levels of seriousness. But however, you have someone serve time and then they are released. Yes, they have a parole officer. They're expected to, help hold their meetings, all that kind of stuff. But there is very little support once you um, try to reintegrate yourself back into society. That could be through employment, that could be through family, it could be through housing. And oftentimes, persons who come out then tend to go back into the very same environment that they were before.
Mhm.
What would you like, or what would you say to the BVI community? What could we do? How can we help in the restorative justice aspect of rehabilitating um, convicted offenders?
Great question. Let me start by saying this. Anyone, anyone could end up behind bars at His Majesty's prison. And we could argue that, oh, I don't do anything wrong, so that can't happen to me. Let me burst some people's bubbles and
Mm.
say that there
Mm-hmm.
are innocent people at the prison right now who are simply waiting for their opportunity in court to have their situation relinquished. But it could happen to any one of us. A simple situation. Um, Guilty by association, being in the
Yes.
wrong place at the wrong time, we could end up there. One of the things we have to understand is the one thing we cannot stop is time. So even though somebody's incarcerated, they have some time to be out there. That time is going to expire after a while, and they're going to be back in our same community. These young men are going to be dating our daughters. They're going to be in our supermarkets. They're going to be in our church. Young women as well, but the majority of our incarcerated persons are males, of course. Um, and so we have to begin to have this mindset where, how can I help to fix the problem that we have with these young men, especially these young men, right? And young women. But how could we help to reduce crime? How could we help to reduce recidivism? One of the big things that is needed is more conversations around incarceration and rehabilitation. It doesn't happen, and we need to have those conversations in our churches, in our communities, and our government needs to begin to really hone in on that and speak about it, because it takes a whole village, it takes the whole territory to come together to fix this problem. All right. We believe that once our businesses are safe and we lock up in the night and we come back the next day and everything is all right, then crime is out of sight, out of mind. Everything is okay until one day we go and we realize that, okay, the bolt has been cut and something is missing, and okay, somebody was in here, and we're trying to rummage through the cameras. People come to us looking for jobs before crimes are committed, and there's a formula for crime. Huh? The formula for crime is opportunity plus threat equals crime. So a simple example I always give: a gentleman who has children, he has his wife or his girlfriend who's in his ear. Don't you care that the children hungry? We got to eat. He's going out there every day trying to get a job, but he's not being successful because he doesn't have the qualifications. He doesn't have the start that he needed. He doesn't have the experience. None of those things are there in his favor. And so he goes to some supermarket to probably see if he could ask to have a few things, and he realizes that the shop owner's back is turned and the cash register is right there. So the threat is that his family is hungry. The opportunity is that the cash register is there and the shop owner's back is turned. He's going to commit a crime because he's been pushed to a place where, listen, I've tried to do it the right way. We got young people who are doing negative things and they're involved in nefarious activities. But if we sit and ask how many of them actually try to do things the right way before
Try
they
to reach
turn,
out, try to ask for help. Yeah.
the reality is we turn a lot of them away. The church, the government, the private sector, we're failing our young people. We have over 200 young people graduating from high school every year, then another 200 graduating from college. Everybody's not going to get a job. It's an oversaturated situation. What are we doing? I don't see us building micro businesses and saying, listen, you own this, you run this. And I put out a challenge to 6 millionaires in this territory. I put it out there and said, come together, let's have a conversation. Let's try to put together some micro businesses, little things, car wash, barbershop, some small
Understood.
businesses. And then we take a couple young people and put them up at the college, not to get a bachelor's or an associate's, but just to do a certified course in business management or something. Show me that you're serious and that you're willing to put in the time. And then, hey, work for 6 months. We're going to have you on a probationary period. And then after that, if you do well, that trade license is yours. Put your name, put that person's name on it. Give them a job, because that's how we fix things. We have to actually put our hands to it. We have to put our finances to it. We have to put our time to it. We need volunteers up at the prison who are willing to work with young people to do different courses. We need people who are willing to teach a trade, who are willing to help those persons who are a year to 6 months prior to their release to get ready for coming back out and working. We have one gentleman named Kofi Modest, who runs a woodwork shop, Prestige Woodwork Shop in Purcell, just next to the funeral home, Davis Funeral Home. And he volunteers his time on Wednesdays and comes up to the prison, and he teaches for 6 weeks. He taught the theory, and then for the rest of time they're out in the woodwork shop actually building stuff. And he's a master shipwright and tradesman, so exquisite work.
Wow.
And these guys were just waiting for an opportunity like that, because they're coming out, they're using the tools, they're doing great work. And even when he's not there, he comes on Wednesdays We got woodwork stuff going on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday when he's not there.
Understood.
They're busy. Give them a little piece of wood, they'll make something out of it. We have people who come up there and see picture frames. They see bed
Bed frames.
frames. They see drawers, desks, cabinets. Exquisite work that we're looking at actually mass producing and probably putting in Craft Alive at one of those places and say, hey, this is actually from HMP. Because one of the things people love is when they come to the BVI, they see something that says made in the BVI, not made in China or somewhere
Yes,
else.
yes.
We got people out there with skills. So we need to begin to rethink what we're doing. People say the prison is a hotel. Let me just say this. Big disclaimer, it is not. Oh, they're eating shrimp, they're eating lobster. When someone is remanded,
Break it down, please. Thank you.
when
Thank
someone is remanded, which means that they have not yet gone to court and gotten a sentence, they're being housed at the prison, but they're actually the property of the police.
you.
That remanded inmate has the right to eat from the street as much as they want to, by law. Okay, once they have the money or their family has the money, they could eat what they want. When that person is sentenced, they now become the property fully of the prison. We're not just housing them, but we're responsible for them even further.
Correct.
And they eat our meals. All right. Now, if an inmate is there for a long period of time, because we have inmates who are there for now 13 years, these are persons who have actually gained a certain level of trust. They're trusted inmates and so on, who've worked hard, who've proven themselves, who have gone through several rehabilitation programs. And you know, somebody who's been there 13 years, you give them an opportunity, they have the right as well, or the privilege of getting certain meals. So I want us to understand that and get away from this concept that it's some free for all going on up on the hill. No, it's not. Come see me, come live with me. It's two different things. It's we really need the support of the whole community to understand what it takes to rehabilitate somebody and to give people that opportunity to get back into the community in a positive way. Not angry, not frustrated, not
Yeah.
lonely, not feeling abandoned and that everybody turned their back on me. Inmates come up there at that prison between the ages of 20 and 40. And they had their friends on the street and they had their attitudes, they had their gangs, they had their cliques, and they learn the reality of life when they come up to that prison because not one person would come up there for many of them and say, hey, do you need a roll of toilet paper? You want me to bring up a toothpaste for you? They learn the reality and the hard knocks of life when they come up to that prison. So it's not a hotel. It's a very difficult transition for most of them. And we need the support because they're going to come back into our communities and we want them to come back transformed and ready to contribute in a positive way to their families, to the community, to our workplaces. We need to work together for that to happen.
Well said. I have a question that has been a thorn in my flesh. And if you can't speak to it, that's perfectly fine. You so eloquently broke down, and I'm thankful that you did that. With being on remand, waiting for trial,
Yeah.
versus actually having been convicted. Right? Why is it that we have the majority of inmates on remand versus having been convicted? It's a bit mind boggling to me that someone could be on remand for years and years in our very small system, awaiting a trial, and in some cases it never comes. Why are we at this point?
I'm glad you said if I could speak to it. So I want to respond, but I'll respond to it as carefully as I can. The fact of the matter is that a part of that system is broken,
Okay.
and we have to accept that. There are some things that need changing. There are some things that need fixing. I know that the current Minister for Health, Honorable Vincent Wheatley, who has responsibility for the prison, is a part of a team that includes the governor, who's in charge of national security, and a couple other stakeholders who are looking at fixing these problems. It's at his heart, and I would commend him for that. Because there are some screws that need tightening. There's some bolts that are not supposed to be there that need to be pulled out and replaced fully. Um, Because the reality is that somebody could be on remand for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, and if they had gotten sentenced, they would have spent 6 months. And then you go to court and you just hear, okay, time served.
Hmm.
I could get back money. I could get back. I could get back anything I lose in this life. I cannot get back time. So to just tell me time served, that's a slap in my face. So something has to fix. Um, there needs to be a better cohesion between the police and the DPP's office, and all these different things. I won't go into much details, but as I said, hopefully the road that the minister and the governor's house and everybody is on right now um, would see a change in that. I know that right now we have two courts going on simultaneously at Passia. They're trying to speed things
Mm-hmm.
up. We have Zoom court going on as at the same time, AVL. So they're trying to deal with that massive backlog,
Influx, yeah. Not influx, backlog.
massive backlog of cases. And there's one gentleman I know, his matter has been going on for 15 years. And I'm like, what is this? 15 years. And he's religiously going to court every time he's told. But
Wow.
the good thing for him is that he's not in the prison. He's not incarcerated because, but 15 years. So there's just this massive backlog. And our remanded inmates right now, as you said or alluded to, outnumber our sentenced inmates, which is sort of unheard of in the majority of the Caribbean countries. So it shows that we do have to speed up what's happening. But hopefully we're on the right track
And
and
what's
that'll
the
be fixed
what's the
soon.
the population of the prison at this time?
Right now, 115.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
115.
I want to take this opportunity to commend you so much, and we've had discussions on multiple occasions about that work, the restorative aspect and rehabilitation, of course, in collaboration with the Rotary Club Sunrise, for which I'm a part
Right.
of, in doing our best to support initiatives that would
Yeah.
help. And it could only be classified for me as a labor of love, both your role as restorative officer and that as a minister of the gospel. Yeah, it's a labor of love. Okay, and
It is.
my hat's off to you for committing yourself and your life to that level of service. Your work has not gone unnoticed, and I trust that you would continue to be granted all of the strength that you need to continue pouring into a generation that needs restoration
Yeah.
and needs rehabilitation. I appreciate you. I see you, and yeah, kudos to you. Cheers to you.
Greatly appreciate it.
Most welcome.
Appreciate it.
Viewers, we were here with the one and only Walter Barrett, of course, the restorative justice officer within the rehabilitation unit at His Majesty's Prison, also a minister of the gospel who continues to pour into the next generation. Amazing contribution, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys so much for sticking with us and supporting the best and brightest of this beautiful British Virgin Islands. I'll see you next week.